Okay, dear students, so as promised, I would be sharing with you the uh, video explanations on scene 3, scene 4, and scene 5 of Act 3. Here's your first one. Your wait is over. Act 3, Act 2, Act 3, scene 3. Yes, you're right. Now, scene 2, you know very well what has happened. In scene 2, we have basically reached the climax, and the climax of the first plot, the first plot that we had been, the play since it began in Act 1, Scene 1. You had this mention about Bassanio moving on, going to Belmont, and then whatever happens was all before us in Act 3, Scene 2. So with that, there is something there for us, a quick shift, a quick move to Venice. And you know very well that Bassanio and the team over there, Bassanio is there, and even Greciano is there, and Salarino has just reached over there. So they all might come to Venice in some time or the other. But before they finally come to Venice, I think the stage has to be, prepared. What is the status? Audience really wants to know what has happened since then. What has been the fate of Antonio? Where is it right now? What happened? We have known that Antonio has probably lost shape, and now with the letter that was just read out to us in scene 2, we know the details that none of his ships has returned back. So what is his state right now, and what is the situation that is there with Shylock right now? Okay, so let's move to Venice. We are into Venice. There's a street scene out there. You have got Shylock there, Salarino, Antonio, and Della, right? So now you see, if you confuse yourself, this is Salarino over here. You have somebody there mentioned as Salario there in scene 2. So don't get confused. That's why I told you the other day, know them as they are with respect to that particular scene, so that you don't confuse yourself with Salarino and Salario, because Salario is nowhere there in the play, in our scheme of things. Ever since we began the play, we have been knowing two people, one known as Salanio and the other one known as Salarino. And then there was somebody mentioned there in the beginning. If you look the character person, you will see Salario is also mentioned, but probably at times they are also referred to as, misnamed at times, so I would basically say, if the text basically tells you Salario in scene 2, know him as Salario, who brings the letter, right? And whatever remarks are being made, know him as Salario. Now is Salarino. We are there in Venice right now. Okay, so this is the scene there on the street, and probably the scene looks like something like this, and I could show you. Wait, just hold on. I'm in my cover book. No, not my cover book. I think I have got this. Yes, it's there inside. I think something like this. If you can see here, yes. So you see, there's this person here, and I'm sure you do understand him as Antonio. There's something tied to him. Okay, I think this is disturbing the camera. Okay, so there's something tied to him, and somebody is standing along with him. And then you have this this old-looking gentleman over here, as well, as Shylock, and then they are having some sort of a conversation, right? So let me go ahead. This is not a very cool picture to show. This is what the conversation goes on. So I'm going ahead, and you see the text right there on the screen. If you wish, you can have your textbook also open, so that if you can mark it over there with your pencil, certain important words, certain lines that I would ask you to underline. So this is what the conversation is between these people. Shylock speaks to Jailer. Jailer, Gaoler, also spelled as Jailer, right? So jailer is the same thing you pronounce as jailer here. Look to him, tell not me of mercy. This is the fool that lent out money gratis. Jailer, look to him. So you see, very stern, somebody who is very stern, very strict. Probably this jailer has brought in Antonio out of the jail or wherever he is supposed to be confined. He has brought him out, maybe on his request that he wants to speak to Shylock. And now the jailer was speaking on behalf of Antonio. So that's why you find the response is to the jailer. Then tell not Look to him. You take care of him. Why have you brought him over here? He's not very happy. He's not very pleased. Let not me of mercy. Tell not me of mercy. Don't tell me. Don't ask me to show mercy to him, right? Don't tell me that, have some mercy on him, because I'm not going to have any mercy on him. Why? Because he's a fool. He is a fool. Why is a fool? Because he lent money to people on gratis without charging interest. And that's the reason why I consider him a fool. Why should a fool be living in Venice? Hence, no mercy. No mercy. Antonio, hear me yet, good Chala. And as though Antonio's voice has gone down, it's very soft and sounds very polite. It's like, hear me yet, good Chala. At least give me some patient listening. I want to say something. Look at Shiloh. He is not ready to listen to any, not even a single word, perhaps. He says, I'll have my bond. Speak not against my bond. Don't you dare speak to me about the bond, because I'm going to have the bond. I'm determined to have my bond. I have sworn an oath that I will have my bond. And he says, I have sworn, I have swear, I have taken taken an oath in the name of whatever I consider as holy, and I have decided that I'm going to have my bond. So please do not speak anything against my bond, whether I'm going to take it, whether I should forgive you. No, I have taken an oath and I'm going to stick to my oath. Thou callest me a dog before thou hast a cause. And then he tries to rub some salt over his wounds and says, you have always, and when did Shylock become so very important that you want to talk to me? You've always called me a dog, even without a reason. You didn't actually need a reason strong enough to call me a dog. But since I'm a dog, I now consider myself as a dog. So since I'm a dog, beware of my fangs. I have a bite. I have bites. And those are very dangerous. Those are very poisonous. And hence, beware. Since you have called me a dog, now I'm having my bite. And you should be very careful about it. You should be, you should know that a dog has a bite, and which is very, very dangerous. And then he proceeds ahead, and you see, the Duke shall grant me justice. It says, the Duke, if you think that the Duke is going to save you, let me tell you, he shall grant justice to you. I do wonder, thou naughty jailer. And then he addresses to this jailer and says, you naughty jailer, thou art so fond to come abroad with him at his request. You are so fond of him. Even the Duke cannot do this now. He will have to give me justice. And you are here on his request. You have brought him out over here to speak to me. You better take care of him and put him there in the confinement where he is supposed to be. Let's carrying this discussion forward. Yeah, this picture, sorry, I was showing you that one. You see this picture over here, and then you see we move ahead. We move ahead, and then we have, I pray thee, hear me speak. Antonio wants to speak. He continues. He really persuades. He wants him to listen. I pray thee, hear you speak. Shylock says, I have love. I'll have my bond, and I will not hear thee speak at all. I don't want you to speak. I will have my bond, and therefore speak no more. Hence, there's no need to speak. I'll not be made soft and dull-eyed fool to shake the head. To shake the head, relent, sigh, and yield to Christian intercessors. It says, you are a Christian intercessor. You are a Christian, somebody who, gets in to everybody's medals with matters. Intercessors, right? So let's see this quickly. Yes. So he says, I'll not be made soft and dull-eyed. You know very well, when you sympathize with people, you become a little soft at heart, and then you become dull-eyed. Why dull-eyed? Because your eyes moisten, and when your eyes moisten means that there are tears. Your eyes become the teary bed. Remember? Yeah. So at that time, you don't see things very clearly. So it becomes dull-eyed. That's why it's written with dull-eyed fool. And he says people who cry, people who bring in tears in their eyes, and get fooled basically by their tears. They can't see things properly. And then what do? In sympathy, they shake their head, and you do like this. No, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, this is really helpful. This is really helpless for me. I mean, what should I do? And then you relent, really bad. I should not have done that. And then you sigh, oh, what have I done? And yield, finally give him, oh, I forgive him. a Christian intercessors, Christian pleaders. Christian pleaders, because he's pleading. Right now, Antonio is pleading before. Intercessor over here means some intervening or pleading. So Antonio is pleading before Shylock, and Shylock says, you are a Christian pleader and I cannot be moved by your whatever you're trying to do. Hence, I'm not going to listen to you at all. He knows probably when he speaks, he might grow soft. He might start sympathizing with him, which he doesn't want. He says, follow not. Don't follow me. I will have no speaking. I'm not going to listen to anything. I will only have my bond. He's so very determined. He's so very rigid. And that's the reason, I mean, you get it proved, you know. Remember what we have read about Celerio telling him, informing that, even if Antonio, it apparently seems like even if Antonio had money to really give him, he is not ready to take. Why? Because the Duke has tried to convince him, the Magnificos, 20 merchants, people of high repute, the businessmen of high repute in Venice that time, and Magnificos and people with important portfolios, they all have approached and tried to speak to him, to influence him to pardon Antonio, but he hasn't. That shows how determined, how rigid, how fixed he is. Right? Let's carry this discussion further, and you find Salarino saying it's the most impenetrable cur that I ever kept with me. Impenetrable, that which cannot penetrate. What cannot penetrate means words cannot penetrate him. He's the impenetrable cur. Cur means a dog, right? So somebody who is hard-hearted, a hard-hearted dog, who cannot be moved by words, right? Antonio finally gives up. He finally gives up and says, let him alone. So Salarino is making remarks on him, and he says, okay, just leave him alone. Leave him alone. I'll follow him no more with bootless prayers. And I am also not going to follow him. I'm not going to make bootless prayers, bootless, useless prayers, useless requests, because I know he's not ready to listen. And if he's not ready to listen, why should I waste my energy in trying to talk to him, trying to mediate, trying to communicate? No, I don't want. He seeks my life, and he understands why he does that. Why he's so fixed. He says, he seeks my life, and his reasons, well, I know. And I know the reason why he wants to seek my life. I often delivered from his forfeitures. Now, this is the first time Antonio is telling you why there's a reason for Shylock to hate him. You've always heard his side of the story. He has abused him and blah, blah, whatever, right? Everything should be fresh in your mind. But this is the first time Antonio says, I know very well why he hates me and why he wants my life. He gives you a reason. He says his reason, and that's why this becomes very, very important. So underline that. What reason does Antonio give? Does Antonio give before Salarino? The reason for Shylock's hatred. Right? So he says here, I often delivered from his forfeitures, many that have at times made moan to me. This is the reason. Plenty of times before, on a number of occasions, as far as is suggested by his remarks over here, that he says in the past, there had been plenty of occasions where I have set people who got trapped into his penalty and forfeiture freed by him. Now, he doesn't tell us how did he get him. Did he actually pay for him, or did he on power, on some kind of power, or with associates there in Venice, intervene in such a manner that he had to reduce the interest, forgive him the pardon? Somehow he says that people who have approached him to plead before Shylock to have some mercy on him, he has been responsible in freeing those people. Now, it could be so that he had paid some amount. Okay, you take the capital and you forgive him the interest. I'm not going to pay the interest. He is not going to pay you the penalty. Somehow he has been the reason of bringing in a lot of losses, or rather not as much profit. This was also told by Shylock early on, if you remember that soliloquy, that piece wherein he says, how like a publican, I hate him for he's a Christian. Remember that? And then he says, if he was not in Christian, I would make money as much. So there has been plenty of occasion where you find Shylock had said this. Now it is Antonio telling you that since I have been a reason for him or I have hindered his, income, the income that probably in my absence he would have generated out of those people who were trapped in his forfeiture. I have freed them, and that's the reason he hates. So now you understand very clearly what's the reason. Even Antonio is very much aware why he hates him, right? Salarino, on the other hand, says, I'm sure the Duke will never grant this forfeiture to him. Salarino tries to give him some confidence, give him some assurances that don't you worry, nothing is going to happen, right? It happens. Somebody is there behind bars, you try to give him some consoling words. So these are some consoling words from Salarino. It says, I'm sure the Duke will never grant this forfeiture. I'm sure. What do you think? The Duke is fooled. The Duke is a fool. He is not going to, allow him to take that forfeiture from you. That is a pound of flesh. Antonio says, but Antonio knows the truth. Antonio knows the truth that he has got himself into some kind of a trouble, right? He says the Duke cannot deny the course of law. What I know is the Duke cannot deny the course of law. And as far as this case is concerned, I know he owes that pound of flesh. He is the owner. He owns that pound of flesh from me. I owe that pound of flesh to him. I need to give him that forfeiture by law. So he understands, he had a good understanding of law, right? So he says that, no, the Duke cannot deny this. The Duke just cannot intervene and say, I have got power and you cannot do that. No, he is supposed to follow the law. Law is above all. For the commodity that strangers have, commodity is here the rights of the foreigners. So you can mark it there, commodity. Just a minute. Let me scroll down. Yes, the commodity that the foreigners, over here the foreigners would mean the foreigners, the minority group, and Jews are one who were there as foreigners in the land of the Christians in Venice. So he says the commodity means the rights that these foreigners have with us in Venice, if it be denied, will much impeach the justice of the state, right? People will doubt the justice, the fair delivery of justice in Venice if this happens. Why? Because these foreigners have their rights protected by law. The law of Venice, the Charter of Venice, the law protects the rights of the minorities, it protects the rights of the foreigners. And if that justice is not given to him, it will raise question mark over our laws, which cannot protect people. They are not trustworthy. I have dealt with this earlier as well. Will much impeach the justice of the state. Since that the trade and profit of the city, and why this will become, it will have its repercussions. Why the Duke cannot afford to do this is because the trade and profit of the city consists of all nations, right? Venice is here. Its economy consists of the trade that Venice is able to make with all nations around. That's and the reason why Antonio is able to generate income, and he is a merchant and he trades with nation, is because of the trust factor that is there with Venice. So if this goes wrong, if something goes wrong here, this might hit the economy of Venice, and the Duke will not allow this to happen. He cannot do this, since the trade and profit of the city consisted of all nations. Therefore, let's forget about it. Let's forget about talking to Shylock anymore. I'm not worried anymore. He says, these griefs and losses, I have suffered loss. I've got a lot of grief there with me right now. So the grief and losses have so baited me. It has reduced me right now. It has reduced me, baited me, made me so modest that I shall hardly spare a pound of flesh, that I have hardly a pound of flesh left in me. This is an exaggeration, obviously a hyperbole wherein Antonio wants to say that I hardly have a pound of flesh, so that his friend feels starving. So you have a friend trying to console Antonio. On the contrary, Antonio tries to console the friend, because the friend is the one who is going to feel more for Antonio's loss, right? So he says, I hardly have a pound of flesh. I'm ready to give it. It hardly matters to me that I shall hardly spare a pound of flesh tomorrow to my bloody creditor. Well, jailer, on. And he asks the jailer, come on, take me back. Take me into my confinement zone. Pray God, Bassanio, come to me. I have only one wish, and I wish that wish is fulfilled. Pray God, Bassanio, come to see me, pay his debt, and then I care not. I don't care. I don't care for the world, right? I only want to see Bassanio while I pay his debt.